Welcome, Julia, to the Dating Intentionally podcast. I'm so excited you're here today.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is wild because I stumbled across your incredible YouTube channel when I was researching
Oh.
content for a workshop, just kind of get some ideas going, and I just went down the rabbit hole on your channel.
I love that. I love that. What were you looking for, if you don't mind me
I
asking?
was researching just on boundaries. There were just some areas I was like stuck on,
Oh,
like, how do I, like, what is, like, I had to kind of dig deeper. I always do my own research for
yeah.
things and just kind of learn from experts like yourself. So speaking of you though, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I am a mental health therapist. That's my training, my background. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. And I was working for the health board for a while. I've worked in mental health and addictions, and then I started my own private practice. But one of my passions has always been around teaching and speaking. And I remember back in high school when we were, in my career class, we had to pick a career that we were interested in and do all this research around salary and budget and like kind of create this whole plan for ourselves. And I thought that I wanted to be a teacher. And then I looked at the salary of a teacher, and back in those days, I mean, it's a lot better now where I live in Canada and British Columbia. But I remember looking at that and doing my budget with rent and car and spending money and vacations. I'm like, I can't make this work. And then I thought, I don't want to be a teacher, actually. I'm really just interested in human psychology, in understanding the depths of who we are
Mm,
and how we work. And then, we come full circle. I get this master's degree. I'm doing private practice, which I also love, but then start doing some teaching and speaking and feel like, oh, yeah, this actually is my calling. There is still that teacher in there. So
yes,
that's what I do
that's
mostly now.
that's amazing. I'm glad that you ended up where you are because you're helping so many people on this path. And so, okay, but you're here to talk about emotional maturity because that's what the rabbit hole I went down. Why do you think emotional maturity is such a hot topic right now?
Is it a hot topic?
Well, I mean, I think so because you have so many videos on it. It's like clearly
I guess so.
people are hungry for it and they have like tens of thousands of views. So,
It's true. It is true. And I think it's another way of sort of understanding ourselves and understanding others and being able to identify dynamics that are going on. We really like that as humans. We really like to understand, like, what is this? What's this issue? What's this struggle? What's going on? And as soon as we can kind of identify it and see it, and to be honest, so this is like a little thing. We love to identify things in other people, right? And so I do a lot of my videos from that stance of like how to tell if someone else is emotionally immature, how to tell if, like when someone acts in emotionally immature ways, things emotionally immature people say. And people, humans secretly are like curious to be like, do I fall into this as well? I want to diagnose my partner or my parent or my friend or my colleague, but I'm also kind of curious, do I fall into this? And so it kind of hits both sides of it. And people are just really curious about that. And also, I think emotional maturity, it's not pathological. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like it's just a pattern. And so if
Mhm.
we can see these patterns and identify them as patterns, and we're like, I can change patterns and I can work with patterns. And so it feels, I think, a little bit more hopeful for people. Like there's something we can do about it.
Yeah, right. It's malleable. So how would you define emotional maturity?
Yeah, emotional maturity is just really becoming not just aware of our own emotional reactions to things and how we take in the world, how we take in other people's actions, how we understand ourselves, but then also becoming really intentional about how we are responding to that, how we are handling it. So it's both sides of it. It's how we understand what's going on with someone else, it's how we understand our own reactions to what's going on with someone else, and then how we choose to respond to that, react or respond in an emotionally immature or emotionally more
Right.
mature way.
That's a
Yeah.
great explanation. And when you talk about it this way, when you break it down into those three parts, it does seem like something that's okay, I could realistically work on this. Like these are
Yeah.
things that I can be aware of, that I can actually adjust and learn how to do better.
Absolutely. The truth is, we can't control someone else's behavior, right? But we absolutely can influence
Mm,
their reactions, their behavior, how they're showing up in a relationship based on how we are showing up, right? Because
right.
we are relational beings and we are very reactive beings. And so if we are changing how we are acting, how we are showing up, how we are speaking, how we are handling things, it's naturally going to have an impact on the receiver of those words, those actions, those choices. And so we can absolutely have a huge impact on our relationships based on how we're showing up without overtly trying to force somebody else to change or trying to control somebody else.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think about because I think before someone learns about these concepts of learning, like, oh, I can influence other people's reaction by the way I react, it seems like we want to just go for the direct path of like, no, you're supposed to do this. Like, no, this is how you should be acting. And like,
Yeah.
it never works though.
It never
It
works,
just
right?
creates
And
more disconnection.
it creates more discussion because we all have our rule books. We all come into
Yeah.
life with our own rule books. Like we have a playbook of like, this is right, this is wrong, this is how people should be, this is what you should know, this is how you should act, this is how you should react to things, this is what the needs of mind that you should be aware of, that you should be meeting, like you should, this is how, this is
Hmm.
right, this is wrong, why don't you? Of course, you're not doing it intentionally, right? And we
Yeah.
bring this all and we're like, oh, they have their own rule book with their own ideas.
Yeah.
In Adlerian psychology, I studied a lot of Adlerian psychology, and it's called our own private logic, right? We all have this private logic, and we
Hmm.
think that everybody else is sharing the same, but they not necessarily are. There can be some overlap for sure. But this
Okay.
is where we get into that idea of like, how could they do that? What were they thinking? Don't they know? And the truth is that maybe they do or don't know, but they might know something different. They might have a different idea of what's a normal way to think about this or react to this or understand this or process this, right? Because they have their own rule book that's come together from the day they were born. All those rules were going in there from all these things that were impacting and influencing them, just like us. And we make the mistake of thinking, if you're not playing by my rule book, you're wrong, right?
You're right. I
Right?
mean, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about my dad, who has like one of the most extreme like private logic that I've ever experienced, and it's like so rigid. Okay, here's an example. It was my 32nd birthday, and I was like, maybe we're gonna do a helicopter ride over the city. And he's like, why would you do that? It's not a milestone birthday. And I'm like, what? like, okay, so your private logic is that you
Mhm.
only gift yourself really big things like a helicopter ride on a milestone birthday. Okay.
Right.
That's just a
Right.
small example.
Well, no, and I see that too in like my own family with, talking to my parents. And I'm sure I absolutely have my own private logic as well. But I remember, hearing them talk about their ideas about how you should be hosting guests at your house, right?
Oh,
Like you should be bringing out your nicest dishes and your most expensive wine and getting the most, gourmet cuts of meat. And then they go to friends' houses that weren't doing those things. And they were just like, what's wrong with them? Like
yeah.
who hosts like that? And it's like, no, you just have a different idea of how things are supposed to go. And you're creating judgment from that. And I just think how much we judge other people from our rule book without considering theirs.
So bringing that back to dating, it's like an example of this could be if someone offers a coffee date when your private logic is like, no, first date should be dinner. And you're offended by that because they
Right.
offer, like, how dare they offer a coffee date? Do you think part of emotional maturity, like, how do we connect this to like being emotional mature means that you can be open minded to other people's private logic? Like, where does that fit in?
Absolutely. Just to understand that, like, and this is what you probably studied, John Gottman, who's one of the most, prolific relationship researchers and experts of our time. And it's what a time to be alive during John Gottman's research, because it's revealed and helped us understand so much. And he says that one of the number one contributors to satisfaction in relationships is not agreeing on everything. It's not understanding everything in the exact same way. It's not having all the same hobbies. It's not having all the same views, but it's being open to the influence of the other person.
Mm.
And I think that that's such a beautiful way of being like, okay, like I am open to your rule book. I am interested in how you understand things. Instead of saying you have to agree with me, it's me saying, help me understand you. And if we can create that mutual dialogue around understanding and being open, it doesn't mean you have to bend or cater to the other person, but it's just really about creating that curiosity instead of that resistance. So if I
Yeah.
have this idea that like, oh, he has to take me out for a 5-course meal, like I'm a high value woman, and I'm only going on dates with guys that book into the most sought after restaurant in the city, then it's like, okay, I mean, you are totally allowed to do that. You're totally allowed to do that. You're allowed to have those expectations and those ideas, but really just understand that not everybody has the same idea. And are you
Right.
going to discount someone because they might not be in alignment with your private logic on that? You are allowed to if you want to, but there could be someone who's really great who's like, hey, I don't want to put their logic might be, I don't want to put a bunch of pressure on a first date. I don't want her to
Mhm.
feel obligated to me by spending all this money on this fancy dinner. And then she feels like she owes me something for it. I just want to keep it light, keep it casual, keep it low barrier so that we just really have a chance to get to know each other without any pressure, right? Like that could
Yeah.
absolutely be their private logic. It's not just because they're a cheapskate, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask though, is emotional and maturity the same thing as emotional intelligence? Are they different?
Yeah. So emotional intelligence is really just about understanding theoretically other people's emotions, maybe our emotions. It's just about saying, like, oh, when this happens, it's natural that someone's going to have this response. So emotional intelligence is a little bit more removed, right? If we
Mhm.
can kind of see it like that, a little bit more theoretical, if you will. I would say it's kind of the difference between like smarts and street smarts.
I
So
was
if you
just
can
thinking
see,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you can be like, emotional intelligence is like book smarts, where you can kind of see kind of what's happening. And then street smarts is like, how do I apply this to my real life? How do I take this in and become aware of it for me? And how is it going to dictate how I navigate the real world and tough situations?
So it sounds like the two are tied together. The first step might be in the emotional intelligence piece, and then that's followed by the emotional maturity piece.
100%. And I think
Okay.
sometimes emotional intelligence, unconsciously, we attribute it to other people. We're like, oh, I can see what's going on with them, or I can understand why they're
Mhm.
acting that way, or I have some insight into their behavior. Whereas emotional maturity is like, okay, so then what do I do with that? If it's personal, right? And emotional maturity comes up so much more when something is personal and it hits a trigger in me or it affects me in some way. How am I going to respond to that?
Yes. Okay, so let's get into it then. What are your tips for someone who's trying to work on their emotional maturity? They want to do this work.
Yeah. So one of my favorite words, and if anyone from my membership community, the Shift Society, is listening right now, which I'm sure they will be, they know exactly what I'm going to say. That the number one thing to start doing with us whenever we're having a reaction, whenever something is coming up for us, the number one way to start becoming more emotionally mature is to get curious.
Mm.
Just get curious. Put on your little like, what's it,
Your
your little
monocle.
monocle and be like, what is happening right now? I am having a big reaction. I am having some big feelings coming up. I am feeling anxious. I am feeling upset. I am feeling reactive. I am feeling angry, right? Why? What is coming up? What did I make that mean about them, about me, about this situation? What is my private logic about
Mhm.
what is happening right now? And if we can start to just start that very first step of getting curious. And now that's not easy. That it sounds so simple, like it's easy to be like, well, I felt this way because they did this. No, no, no. They did this and this is what came up for me. Why?
Well, I think one of the hardest parts about getting curious first is that it doesn't necessarily make you feel better. Like in a moment where you're feeling some emotional distress, you might be grasping for the first thing that will make that go away, and curiosity might not be that thing. It probably isn't going to be that thing. I think
But
that's why it's hard.
it is hard, but it is the only way to really deal with it versus like blaming, numbing, repressing, avoiding.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't actually make it
It's
go
the first
away.
step for sure.
But it's harder. Like emotional maturity it's a lot easier to be like, you're wrong, I'm right, you suck, you're the bad person, right? It's so much easier to do that. And it's easier to deflect, right, than it is to reflect. And
Okay.
it takes more work, but that's what the work is, right? Like that's what all of this, when they talk about doing the inner work, that's what it is. And
I
it
know. It's so
sucks, but
it,
it's
it sucks and
bullshit.
it's invisible. Yeah.
This is bullshit. I don't want to take any responsibility.
You're like, what do you mean I have to get curious and think about myself? Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, after we're getting curious, what's the next step? Like we just sit with it. We're like, okay, asking ourselves questions like, why did this come up for me? What am I making
Yeah.
this mean? What am I feeling? But then
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. So then it's really, once I take that step back and I take that beat, I take that breath, I take that moment to slow the whole thing down, get curious about what's coming up for me. And then there's my opportunity to also start to get curious. This is the hard part. This is the part that's the real bullshit, is about starting to get curious about what might be going on with them. That
Mm,
isn't the foregone conclusion that they're a jerk, that they're selfish, that they're terrible, that they're all to blame, right? And that's the part where it's like, man, it's so much easier when they are wrong and I am right,
yeah.
right? And to really just take that step back and be like, okay, what might be going on with them right now? Where's their private logic? And I'm not saying this to allow like scapegoating bad behavior. And I think that we know the difference. Like there's a difference between like abusive or really harmful or intentionally like cruel behavior versus like having something with your partner that's coming up for the both of you. That's like, you know what, like there's some stuff going on here. There's some stuff going on for me. There's some stuff going on for them. Let's slow it down. Let's get some understanding. And if
Hmm.
we can create more of that understanding versus that judgment or that reaction, then we actually have a fighting chance to work through this and for this issue or this incident to bring us closer together versus a winner and a loser.
Yeah. And that slowing down piece is really important. That's where it happens, right? And that's a really hard part as well because a lot of us want to get to the solution really quickly. We don't want to be in conflict. We want to get out of conflict quickly.
Yeah,
So, but slowing down and I love the advice of aim for understanding because you're not it's like before you try to solve the problem, just understand everything going on first.
yeah.
Like get it all out on the table and then you could put the puzzle together.
Totally. And that's it. And, you know, and I've had a lot of people say, like, well, why do I have to be the bigger person? Why do I have to be the one to take a step back and to do this reflection? And I'm like, you don't. You absolutely do not. You don't have to do anything. But if you want a different outcome, and that's important to you, and you're the one with the awareness, the understanding, or the tools, then unfortunately, it is going to be up to you. You can wait for them to do their own work. And for them to have those understandings as well. But you might be waiting a lot longer than if
Yeah,
you start
right.
to initiate that. If you want the dynamic to change and you are the one with the capacity, the tools, the understanding in order to start changing that dynamic, then yeah, it is up to you. But by all means, I tell people all the time, you don't have to do anything. You can stay exactly as you are. You can continue living exactly as you are. You continue the dynamics, the patterns. It doesn't make you a better or worse person, right?
Right.
It's not about a moral superiority. It's about how do you want to be living? How do you want to be feeling? How do you want to be connecting? How do you want to be engaging? What do you want out of life? What do you want that to look like? And because you are the driver of your own life, if you want things to be different, another piece of bullshit, you're the one that is going to have to do something to make it different, which is like, if only other people could just make my life better, it'd be so much easier. And yes, it would. It's just not the way that it works,
No.
unfortunately.
And I'm glad you said that because there is, and I was going to ask you this later, of like, there are people who feel like, oh, I don't want to train this other person. I don't want to be their therapist. I don't want to teach them how to do this. And I think what you're getting at is like, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you because you are trying to work on this emotional maturity
Yeah.
piece. You are trying to improve and learn and grow.
Yes.
And yeah, they're along with you on the ride because you're in a relationship with them. That's just going to
100%.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really just this personal, if I can feel this personal mastery over my own self and my own life and my own feelings, and of course we're going to be impacted by other people's feelings. But it's this really just sort of rhymey little phrase that I remind myself often when I'm in it. And I say to myself, other people don't have to be a certain way in order for me to be okay. And I
Oh, I
remind
love
myself,
that.
right? Like, and if I can release that need for other people to be a certain way so that I can be okay, and I work on my stuff and making me okay and dealing with what's happening inside of me as a result of what they're doing or not doing, then I have so much more say over my well being in life. And it's not dependent on all these other people that I really have no control over. And so, as much as you can be like, well, I don't want to be the one doing all the training. Well, you're not actually doing all the training. You're doing all the liberating for yourself. You're liberating yourself from feeling at the whim of other people's thoughts, feelings, words, or actions.
That's so much more empowering, honestly. It's so much more freedom and power in that moment.
It is. And you might think like, well, that's such hard work, Julia. I'm like, all right, but what's harder? Trying to force someone to be something or someone that they're not willing or able to be? I
Yeah, it's way
mean,
harder.
it's harder and it's a lot more frustrating. But sometimes we like that option because we're like, well, if only they were like this, then I'd be okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other person though. We talked about what we can do, and those are some great tips to get us started. And if you're listening, like definitely go to Julia's page for way more in-depth tips on how to become more emotionally mature. But we have a lot to get through. So, what are some of the signs that someone is emotionally mature? If we're on a date, like if we're in a dating
Immature or
scenario,
mature?
oh, mature, the one we want.
Yeah. So just like pay attention to what they're talking about, who they're talking about, what they're complaining about, right?
Okay.
You can tell a lot about a person based on what they're complaining about. If they're like, my boss, my ex, my blah, 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 all these issues, all these things outside of me that are causing all of my distress, then that's a really clear sign that they lack the awareness of their own say over their own well being. And so they're going to likely be someone who's going to blame outside factors, including probably you at some point, for their human experience, right?
Right.
Quite a lot. And of course, in a relationship, we're impacted by the people that we love. But there's a difference between, understanding that I'm going to be impacted by this person's behavior versus they're at fault for anything, right? It's their fault. They're to blame. If they were more like this, then I could be like this, right? And of course, there's going to be that interconnectedness in our relationships, but how much are they blaming outside factors? And it's a jargony term in psychology called an internal versus external locus of control.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And people with high emotional maturity have a high internal locus of control, where they believe that their well-being, that so much of their own life and their experiences in life and their outcomes in life are up to them. And of course, we can't not
Yep.
consider, social structures and oppressive structures and all these kinds of things in society. But, understanding that no matter what my circumstances, I always have choices within them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus an external locus of control. And people with external locus of control tend to be higher on anxiety, on depression, on low self-esteem, right? Because they believe that life is happening to me and that I am a helpless victim in life. And so
Yeah.
it's out, nothing is in my control.
I really relate to what you're saying. And I found that when I was dating, if I ran into someone, I would call it if they're in victim mode, right? If they just show up in victim mode of their life, I was not attracted to that at all. And I would not go out with them again.
No.
And it's like, okay, everyone has stuff that they're dealing with. It's not like I expected someone to not have anything they're dealing with in life. It's hard, but it's like how they're framing it, how they talk about it is so true. So that's a great sign. What do they complain about? Are there signs of maturity, of emotional maturity in the way someone is moving their relationship forward?
Yeah. And I think that comes from it's the care of you
Hmm.
without the anxiety. That you can feel the difference between someone that is like caring about you and considerate of you versus someone that's like highly anxious about you and like making sure that everything's okay, right? So one of them can come from like codependency where it's like, is that okay? Are you sure that's okay? Well, if you don't want to do that, and that can just be a sign of like insecurity. There's some codependence there. There's some people pleasing tendencies there. And if that, maybe you're into that, maybe you're into someone who's totally like, catering to you and always, just like making you the center of everything. But to many of us, we want like a partner where there's going to be some equal footing and some equal understanding, and both people have space in the relationship for themselves and for each other. And there's just like this beautiful interdependence as opposed to like a dependence or a codependence. And so, yeah, if they just sort of have that awareness and that consideration without it feeling like too much, without it feeling overly anxious, versus like someone with low emotional maturity would tend to be more on the other end of it, really avoidant, right? And not really willing to be honest or to be open. Maybe they're playing mind games. They're being a bit manipulative. They're doing a push-pull. In emotionally mature relationships, there's just sort of, you can feel it in your nervous system where you just sort of feel safe and comfortable, and your body will know, right? Your body will know if you feel safe and if you feel like, I can exhale.
You're describing exactly like how I felt when my husband was pursuing me, if you will, in early dating. He was showing up, I call it like quietly persistent. That's the phrasing I use of like, he was persistent and he was showing interest in me, but it didn't seem like urgent
or needy or like clingy, right?
Exactly. It wasn't like, if I lose you, I don't know what's going to happen. It was more just like, I don't know, it just felt healthy.
I think you're really great, and I'll be okay without you, but I really like you, and I would really like to get to know you better because I think you're great. Yeah.
That's the vibe. Do you think there are any questions someone could ask on a date to reveal emotional maturity, like any conversation topics?
How's your relationship with your family? And I understand that some people have families where there is like, there's a lot of dysfunction, but how do they understand that dysfunction? Right? And how do they talk about that dysfunction? And if they're like, this person, they've been through their own stuff, they've got a lot of their own issues, I haven't been able to make a relationship work with them, versus like, oh, this person's like terrible, they're awful, right? Like, how do they sort of understand other people around them? Are they like judging? Are they name calling? Are they vilifying? Or are they like, if there is rifts in the family relationship, are they able to just be like, you know what, like they've got their own stuff going on that they're navigating, and I've got my own stuff going on that I'm navigating, and at this point on either of our journeys, it is not a match, right? It's not a fit. Like, and do they, and I mean, that's high level emotional maturity. That's like, like someone has a lot of self-awareness and a lot of understanding. And if that's important to you, then that's going to be very attractive. But just start to pay attention. How are they talking about other people? Are they bad-mouthing people? Are they going off about people? Are they, like, how do they treat other people around them? Is there a level of care and respect for the server at the restaurant or at the coffee shop? Is there just that awareness of other? Because that's also a really clear indicator of emotional maturity. Is there an awareness of others? Mm-hmm. Not like a hypervigilance that brings them into like that anxiety and that people pleasing, but is there just like a consideration and a respect for other people around them? And how their behavior is going to impact the people around them, and that other people are human beings, right?
Right. I mean, these are all great things to watch for. And as you're talking, I noticed you mentioned anxious and avoidant a few times. Is there a connection between emotional maturity and attachment?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, 100%. Yeah. And so people who are securely attached, again, are going to demonstrate that higher level of emotional maturity. And it's also interconnected into self-esteem, right? Because anxious attachment can come a lot from our own sort of sense of self and how we feel about ourselves. If I have low self-esteem and I think I'm not lovable and I think I'm not worthy and I think that people are going to leave me and I think I don't have anything to offer and that I'm not worth sticking around for, then I'm going to be more anxious in my attachment. I'm going to try to grasp really tightly to make people stay so that they can't leave me, because I think that everyone's going to leave me because I don't actually think that I'm worth sticking around for, right? Right. And so then that's going to be like, I'm going to need other people to give me what I need so that I can be okay.
Got it.
And that anxious attachment's going to show up.
That was something else I was going to kind of ask of like, it sounds like, because you're saying a sign of emotional maturity is how they are relating to other people, they're, around them, not just you on the date, but just everyone, their family, friends, but also like how they relate to themselves. No,
100%.
that's
That's
a
that
huge part of it too.
self-awareness,
Yeah.
right?
And how they talk about themselves.
100%. And that's the crux of emotional maturity, is that piece of self-awareness, right?
Got it.
Emotional maturity doesn't mean you have to have perfect emotions all the time. There's no such thing, right? But it's when this jealousy, when this hurt, when this um, anger, when this insecurity comes up, it's that curiosity that is the defining feature, right? What am I
Yeah.
doing with this? How am I relating to myself in these emotions? Am I getting
Yeah.
curious, or am I getting reactive, or am I freaking out?
I did this today on the
Yeah.
treadmill. I got a
Yeah.
DM from someone that, like, it was definitely taking me out of my workout, which I shouldn't be reading DMs on the treadmill, but I was. And, instead of like shooting off a DM back, which is something like reactive, right? Like if someone's coming at me, they have this hostile energy. It's like you want to just send something back, like
Mm.
quick, shooting from the hip. And it's like, no, let's just like leave it for a second, create the space, show
Yes.
curiosity. What's coming up for me? Why is this making me feel so like spicy in my body right now? Like, why is this
Yeah.
taking me out of my workout? And
Yes.
then I took a minute and I like really thought through how, if I was going to respond, and how I would. And like, it was a lot better, and
100%.
diffuse the situation
The
completely.
power of the
Yeah.
pause. Yes. Yes. I know. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the nice thing about teaching all of this stuff, is that because I teach so much around emotional maturity, I don't get a lot of like catty, or like, you know what I mean? Because I'm
I
like,
don't either.
well,
That's why it affects me so much, I think, because
yeah.
I really don't that much.
But I'm like, I'd be a little bit like, well, I think that we need to read back over this post if this is how we're reacting.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true. It's like, did you read the post?
You're going to be my next case study.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Screenshot.
But
Got it.
yeah, I mean, and that's it. Because it's so satisfying. Like when we're triggered, like it's this energy coursing through our body, right? And our instinct is to offset that energy as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
It happens for all of us. Like, I want to get you back. I want to dispel this energy with aggression. And that's human. And we all do it. And it doesn't make you emotionally immature if you have that urge or you have that feeling. It's not about the urge. It's not about the emotion. It's about, what do I do with it?
Mhm.
How do
Yeah.
I respond instead of react? And it's so freaking hard sometimes. How do I slow things down, bring in that pause, take a breath, calm myself down, get back into my cortex, which is my logical thinking part of my brain, get out of my amygdala, which is my reactive, emotion centered fight, flight, freeze response. How do I get back into my, like, into reintegrate into my body, into my brain, really just sort of slow things down, and then consciously decide,
Yeah.
what outcome do I want? And what is going to be the response that's going to be help me to get that outcome? It would give me the best chance to have that outcome, right? And that's a
So,
very emotionally mature question. What outcome do I want? Like, at the end of the day, how do I want this to end, or how do I want this to go? And what response do I give that's going to help me meet that desire?
I love that you're saying this, because I literally send that DM all the time. People, like, they'll send me like, Talia, like, I need help with this. I don't know what to say. And I always say, like, what outcome do you want? Like, what is your desired outcome? And that usually helps them get in the right direction. It's like, okay, if this is what you want, align your actions with that. That's how you need
Yes.
to show up. So I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about emotional maturity more in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Can it work if one person is more emotionally mature than the other? Like, when does that become a deal breaker? When is it fine?
Again, back to Gottman's work, as long as they are open to the influence, right?
Hmm.
Like, I had a partner once who was quite emotionally immature, but he was very open to the influence. Like, some people are not interested, they're not willing, they don't have any of that awareness, they'll flip it back on you no matter what. And in that case, that's a whole other conversation. But if you can tell that, like, when you change your response to them, they start changing their response, then you know that they are open to the influence. And so, and I said this to a partner once. I said, why is it that when I bring up something that you've done that hurt my feelings, you turn it back and start blaming me that it's my fault? I don't understand. Why do you do that? And I said it very gently, not in like, why do you do that? I was like, I don't like, help me understand what's going on there. And he just said, I don't know. And he
Yeah.
was open to having that conversation. And that's how you know. If they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not, like, this is your fault. If they double down, then you know that they're not there. And that's why, this person, I was like, I have to give you credit. Like, I gave him so much credit because I'm like, you are actually trying. Like, he's very avoidant, came from like a lot of like neglect, right? Dad left him when he was little. His mom was a single mom. She unintentionally neglected him because she had to work 2 or 3 jobs to support 2 small children as a single parent back in the 80s. And like, he was neglected. So he became like, lock and load, keep everything inside, no one's around, like, deal with it yourself, don't let anyone in, and so became very like everything felt like a threat when everything was personal. Anything was personal because there's a high degree of like shame there as well about his dad leaving him. Like, just there's so
Mm-hmm.
much going on, right? And because like, I could have just been like, peace out, like, no, this is not, you got a lot of work to do, buddy. But I could see that I didn't do that because I could see that he wanted to, that he was willing to, that I
Right.
could talk about things and bring things up with him, and he would take a pause and reflect. And I'm like, I can work with this.
So it sounds like if you are able to make adjustments to how you are approaching these conversations, if you're able to come in with a gentle
Yes.
tone, come in with curiosity and questions and openness, if your partner can reflect that openness and curiosity is back, that's a good sign.
That's a
That's what
great
we're looking
sign.
for.
They don't
Yeah.
have to have it all together. And again,
Right.
it's
They might not
being
have the
open.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's being open to the influence and wanting to grow as well. Right?
Yeah, what if he had said, I don't know, and I don't, and that was the end of the conversation? Because that's, if I hear I don't know from a partner, that can be very triggering for me. Like, I am like, oh God, is that the end? How did you know he was willing to like, be like, I don't know, and
I know him well enough at this point. We've had conversations about things before, and in the moment. So, and this is the other part. See, I'm a very like patient person. And I don't give up easily, which, for better or worse.
yeah,
But, we'd have other things that would come up, and I would say, like, this is what's important to me. This is what's coming up for me, and this is what's important. And I know because of his avoidant tendencies, he wouldn't say a whole lot. He wouldn't say, I hear you, I get that. Okay, I'm going to do better. I would say, like, this is important to me. And he would be like, okay,
yeah,
and be like, all right. And then he wouldn't say a whole lot about it, but then his actions would do the talking.
yeah,
And I'm like, all right. And I learned that, like, okay, like, I can see that you are making an effort and you are actually really hearing me, even though it might feel too vulnerable for you to be like, I see that and I'm sorry and I'm going to do better. And he would sometimes say, like, okay, I'm sorry, but there wouldn't be a whole, like, it wouldn't, I'm a words person. I came from a very like highly engaged, we hash everything out kind of family. He wasn't like that.
yeah.
But he would also, not say a whole lot, but he would do a whole lot. And I'm like, right. And
Yeah.
that's where I really had to get aware of, like, his rule book versus my rule book. Like, my rule book says that you have to, say all these things and take all this responsibility and express this all verbally. And you have to make sure that I'm okay. And you have to take full responsibility for all of it. And I'm like, but do I need that? Like, that's my rule book.
Right. How
And
can I be okay? Yeah.
yeah. And is what he offering, am I able to see what he is doing instead of just seeing what he's not, And is that enough for me? And I decided that, yeah, like, someone say, no, that's not enough. I need someone who's going to do this. And that's not wrong either. But I decided that, yep, I could see the effort, and I like really loved this person, and I could see the effort, and I could see the intention, and I could see the changes happening. So I'm like, all right.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's so helpful to hear really how that works underneath the surface, behind the curtain, like how it
Yes.
actually works. If you're the more emotionally mature person in a relationship, how do you avoid taking like over functioning
Yeah.
in that way and doing so much more emotional labor?
And that's exactly it. And that's where you have to see, is this person willing to join me in this pursuit, right? Are they willing to have these hard conversations? Are they willing to make some changes? Are we willing to learn with and from each other? It's not just about like, are they willing to understand me? Because we have to also do it as well. Am I willing to understand them and where they're coming from and what their capacity is at this point? And am I willing to recognize the effort that they are making and the changes they are making, even if it's not exactly what and how and the timeline and the magnitude that I expected? It's both people being open to the other person's influence, right? And so I think that we have to be really aware of that. But if you have had the same conversation over and over again and nothing is changing and they say they will, but they don't, I would much rather someone doesn't say a lot and actually make the change than to keep saying they will and do nothing. Right.
Right.
So what is actually happening? Are things getting better? Do you see the differences happening? And then that's where that information is. And am I doing the work as well to take a little bit of a step back and give them the space to be who they are instead of expecting again that they have to be a certain way for me to be okay? Do
Yeah.
you see that that both people are working together? And am I able to recognize what they're doing? Because that's my work. Instead of being like, you don't do this, you don't do that. Well, what about I recognize what they are doing? Right?
Yeah, and I think one comment I hear a lot as well, I am the one who initiates all the relationship conversations. I'm the one who initiates the things we need to work on, and I am the one who jumpstarts these things. That translates to emotional labor. So it's like my, I don't know. I want to hear your take on that first, and I'll share mine.
Yeah, and I think that typically people who are socialized as women, we tend to be have more relationship intelligence because we have been socialized to approach relationships in such a different way, and also because people socialize as women, like we tend to be a lot more verbose. We tend to talk about things. We tend to it's socially acceptable for women to talk about their feelings. So we've grown up in this atmosphere of really just like talking about things a lot more and bringing things up in the open a lot more. Typically that's a stereotype, but
Mhm.
stereotypes are around usually for a reason. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're like, I'm always the one that's bringing it up, and it's like, great, awesome, good that there's someone in the relationship that's addressing things. And you absolutely don't have to. But if you want something to be different, and it doesn't mean that your partner doesn't want it to be different, they just don't have the awareness or the language or the practice to be able to do it the way that you do. And they
Yeah.
probably will at some point. So it's less about who's bringing it up and how it's going when it is brought up. So if I can take a step back and be like, all right, like I am bringing this up again. I'm the one who's addressing the thing again, but are they open to the conversation? Are they available to engage? And that's the more important thing. Because just understanding that usually one person in the relationship, typically the female, has had a lot more practice with talking about stuff.
Totally. And I'm glad he said that. I agree. I guess my similar approach is like in a relationship, it's not 50-50. You each have different roles and different strengths that you bring to the table, no matter if you're in a hetero relationship, a gay relationship, like you're as a person, you have just different things that you care more about. And yeah, there is going to be one person maybe who brings up more of these conversations. There might be another person who the other person plans more of the trips and dates. Another person
Yes.
takes care of more of the bills. And it's like you have different things that you bring to the table. So it's okay that it's not 100% even.
Yeah. And different people need different things in a relationship. Like some
Yeah.
people need these emotional conversations and this is their love language and how they feel connected. And again, we are instilling our own rule book on somebody else. If we say, well, if you don't need those things, then you don't really love me. But it's like, well, maybe they need different things for
Yeah.
love, right? Like maybe they don't
Yeah.
need these big like relationship hashing out things. Maybe they need some quality time together. Maybe they need to just have that sort of consistency and knowing that you're there. Like maybe that's enough for them. It doesn't mean that they love you less. They just have different needs.
Yes. Julia, this has been awesome. I want to get into a dating dilemma, but just to recap what we've been talking about, like it just sounds like emotional maturity comes with being open, being curious, seeing other people and letting them like show up as themselves with all of their stuff that they're dealing with, thinking about their needs, and like learning how to be okay with yourself without them having to be a specific way.
100%.
That's what I'm taking. That's what's like landing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, relationships aren't there to complete us, contrary to what Jerry Maguire had us believe. They're there to complement us. And we absolutely need relationships. We are hardwired for connection. But our relationships are there to complement us, to add to our lives, not to complete our lives.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to share just for the person who's like, I feel like I'm doing this work, but I'm not getting anywhere?
So this is a really tough one because I have had people say that, and I've worked with couples. I've worked with one partner in the partnership, and they're like, I'm doing all this stuff. And then I actually meet with both of them, and I'm like, it's not actually landing the way that you intended. And
Mm,
so we can sometimes think like I'm doing the right things, but it's not really, without that training, without that, like, without actually really understanding human dynamics, how communication lands, what we say it, how we understand them, how, like, it's communication, healthy and like solid communication in a relationship is work, it's training, it's learning. Gosh, like
yeah,
I have been studying this like healthy and effective communication for over a decade. And I sometimes still get it wrong, right?
of course.
I know when I'm getting it wrong, and
Yeah.
I know why I'm getting it wrong now, so I can see that. But it's, like I wouldn't know how to communicate well if I hadn't studied it. I teach a whole program on assertive and effective, emotionally intelligent communication. And like without that sort of understanding and like figuring out how you're going to get that learning, if you go to the couples therapy, if you take a course, if you do some reading, right? Instead of just being like, well, I told my partner and they haven't done anything and they haven't gotten anywhere. It's like, okay, do you know that how you're communicating is the most effective way to communicate with that person to ensure that the message that you are uttering, right, is the message that they are receiving.
Yeah, that's a good thing to reflect on. And I appreciate you saying that because it is really hard. We shouldn't expect perfection. It sounds like it's a lot of trial and error. And hopefully you're with someone who's willing to go on that journey with you.
Yeah. And just to
So,
be honest, like that's sort of one of the secrets is if I could just be honest about my experience, this is how I'm feeling, this is what's coming up for me, this is how this impacted me, and so much more or less about like you, and like this is what's coming up for me, and this is how I experience that. Can we, instead of me against you, it's us working together to figure out this issue,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
Amazing. Well, listen, do you have a little extra time?
Yeah,
Okay, great. Because
so much
at
time.
the end of every episode, I like to do a listener question that's a little bit longer. I call them a dating dilemma.
Of
So I picked
course.
this one for us to answer. I'm going to read it and then we can dive in. Cool?
Yes.
All right. I, 45 female, have been seeing a man, 45 male, for 3 months. The first 3 months, he texted daily. We talked every day after work. We were seeing each other a few times a week. Recently, he started a part time job on top of his full time job. So we don't spend as much time together, but we still communicate. This made me nervous. When he didn't reply to a check in text, I panicked and sent an aggressive text because I was ghosted right before meeting him. We talked about it, and he says he still wants to see me, but wants to take things slow and let things happen naturally. I agreed that I may have rushed things at first. Now I respond when he reaches out, but I don't initiate. He says nothing has changed, but he wants me to relax and enjoy this without stress. We both want the same things, but he's more of a slow burn, and I've never experienced that before. How do I navigate this without overthinking? Do I step back, keep communicating, or just trust the process? What should I do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so, we just think about it from the other side of it, right? And this is
Okay.
such an important thing is like if I had someone where I didn't text them back and they aggressively texted me, like, what are you doing? You're playing games, blah, 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 blah. Well, how would I feel? Would I be like, oh, I feel closer to you now. I feel so loving and warm towards you. We'd be like, what? Oh my gosh. Right? Like, so just play it the other way sometimes. And this is going to give you a lot of understanding into how to approach your relationship. And even if it's a new relationship, whatever relationship, really just think about if they were to do this to me, what would be my reaction? What would be my response? How would I feel about that? Right. And if I had this person that was like constantly like texting, like, are we okay? What's going on? You'd be like, that's annoying, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
annoying. Just chill. At the end of the day, people are going to do what they want to do. So it's your job to just manage your own emotions around that. And people will make the effort for things that they want to make the effort for. And if you just take a step back and just observe how they engage, the effort that they put in, and not trying to force it, not trying to force them, not trying, especially early on in a relationship, and just be like, I'm just going to let you do what you do, and I'm going to decide if that's okay with me.
Right.
right? Instead of saying, this is how you have to do it, this is how often you have to text, this is what it means if you don't, just being like, you know what, I'm just going to take this step back and I'm just going to let you engage with me how you want to, because that's just how you do things. And I'm going
Yeah.
to decide whether that's okay with me. Now, we can give people little bits of information and just be like, hey, like having like a really like a little daily check-in helps me feel more connected to you. It really just like makes me kind of excited about seeing you. It kind of puts you in my head so I can't stop thinking about you, right? If we frame it in a positive way and letting people know this is what matters to me, they're going to be a lot more likely to adjust that behavior versus like why didn't you text me, and like you were texting
Yeah.
me so often before and now you're not texting me as much, you're not replying to me, what's going on, what's the problem? And if we think about that, it's not that that's wrong to call it out, but from just a human emotion standpoint, how would it affect you if someone came at you like that? Would you be
Got
like,
it.
oh, this person's awesome, I really want to get closer to them, I really like them, or like, whoa, okay, that's a lot.
I love this filter for text of like, what if I receive this text? How would I
100%.
respond? And
Yeah.
edit it from there, and maybe you can change your tune.
Totally. And if I got a
Yeah.
text from a guy that was like, "Hey, I really love our like little check-ins and I love just like getting a little like cute emoji from you, like it just kind of gets you in my head and it makes me kind of not be able to stop thinking about you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I want that." Right? So
Right.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to send the things. Like how do we kind of communicate what we want and the positives about it versus like accusing someone of not fulfilling our expectations,
Yeah.
often unspoken expectations.
So, okay, I have a different read on this than you.
Yeah,
And
go.
so I think we are hearing from the point of view of this woman writing in. So I don't know what we don't know the guy's side. But what I picked up on was that she made the mistake of being like, I got ghosted last time, so it's happening again now.
Right.
It's when I'm in that mindset, it's like, okay, is there evidence of this guy being a ghoster? I've known him for 3 months. Does he seem like the type of person so far who would do that to me? Yes or no? And maybe the answer is yes. Maybe the answer is yes. We don't know with this guy. But that's the question I would ask first, because it's like when people project their past
Yeah.
stuff onto their current whoever they're dating, it's not going to go well. You might even sabotage or like drive them to do the thing you're actually scared of. Yeah.
100%. Because we unconsciously create the outcomes we don't want
If
by
you're
how we
focusing on them.
react. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because then
I
if she's
guess.
like, oh, you're ghosting me, right? And then I have this thought, you're definitely ghosting me, that I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get upset. I'm going to like call you out on it. And it's actually going to push them away, which is going to be more likely that they're going to ghost if they feel
Yeah.
like, whoa, that was a lot. And like,
Yeah.
that's too intense.
Applying your advice, we have this information that he just took another job on top of his job. So it's like, okay, yeah, this might change the texting. In retrospect, what I would tell this person is have a conversation about how your communication might change with this job transition. That's fine to do it 3 months. That's fine. Like, it's not too early to have that conversation of like, hey, you're starting this job, I'm feeling a little nervous because our communication might change. Like, what do you think? How do you think it's going to go?
Yeah.
And just open that up.
Yeah.
And then her question, how do I navigate this without overthinking? I think if I were her, I wouldn't get too hung up on this one little incident that happened, right? This panic text that she sent, because
Yeah.
things seem to be moving forward. It's like, okay, just focus on what's happening right now. Like, focus on
Yeah.
his current behavior. It sounds like he's initiating things. You're not initiating stuff, but he's reaching out to you. He wants you to relax and enjoy this without stress. Take that at face value.
Yeah.
Like, he's in it. He's here.
Well, and that's the other thing too. And time will tell, but like forcing it, I mean, that could ruin something that does have potential, as opposed to just sort of taking a step back and be like, okay, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust
Hmm.
that when you say, just chill, just take a step back, maybe he's settling into the relationship. He feels more secure and stuff, doesn't feel like he needs to be texting constantly. Right.
Yeah.
And he's okay with that. That's entirely a possibility. But at the end of the day, just sort of take a step back and see what happens when you listen to what he says. Does the relationship fizzle out, or does it continue to go the way that it has been going? And it's just sort of a bit of an adjustment in the dynamic, but there's still assurance and consistency. And, all signs point to things continuing to go well. Because
Yeah.
again, like it's that, yeah, just like take a step back and just observe what happens when you do kind of agree to or kind of believe what they're saying. You don't know for sure. You don't know if he's just actually just being like, oh, I'm kind of losing interest, so I'm pulling back. You don't know that. It could be a possibility. But either way, if he is doing that, you coming forward and being like, why are you doing this? What's going on? Is everything okay? Da 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 da. Like that's gonna, if he was, not having any kind of hesitations, that will make him have hesitations. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And
Yes,
so
yeah,
if you
yeah,
can be
yeah.
like, all right, okay, right, all right, I will take that step back. I will trust you. I will believe you. I will deal with my own anxiety that's coming up. I will deal with my own fear that's coming up because that's my only real option to really give this relationship a chance is
Right.
managing myself, managing my
And that's
own
hard, like we said
anxiety.
earlier.
Because we look for
It's really
other people
hard.
to resolve our feelings for us,
Yeah.
right? Like I need you to resolve my feelings for me because I'm feeling anxious.
Right. The last thing I want to mention, though, is just generally like 3 months of dating. That is a time when texting will naturally taper off a little bit because you're still in the honeymoon phase, I think, in dating
Yeah.
at that point, but like you don't need to text as much necessarily. If it just tapers off from there. Once you live with
Yes.
someone, the texting is non-existent. So like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
only it's okay if it starts really hot and heavy in the beginning. Just know that it's not going to go up from there.
Probably not. And especially if you
No.
have an insecure attachment, right? Anxious attachment, then you're like, you've got these like spidey senses and this like super like focused on what are these indications. It's almost like
Yeah.
looking for reasons that the person's going to leave me, right? The
Right.
person's going to,
Right.
I'm not going to be good enough. And it's like, well, it probably means nothing, but you're making it mean something. So again, how do I manage myself in this and decide that like they have told me that everything is okay, and so until I have clear evidence to the contrary, I'm going to believe them because that is my only shot at actually making this relationship work is believing them.
Yeah, it's amazing advice, Julia. This has been fantastic. Thank you for doing that dilemma with me. I hope if you're listening that helped, and I hope this episode helped you if you're trying to work on emotional maturity. So, Julia, where can we hear more from you?
Yeah, right now I've just been having lots of fun on Instagram. Been teaching a lot about emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, about our own kind of relationship with ourselves and getting more secure in that. And just in like these little bite sized chunks that are easy to digest and carousel posts that are easy to save and come back to. So I would say Instagram right now. I also have my YouTube channel where I do longer form teaching videos. So either one, whatever your kind of
Yeah,
learning style is, that would probably be best.
we'll link all of it in the show notes. Thank you again for coming on. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much. Such a good conversation.